I'm going to be honest with you here. I struggled for a long time to lose my annoying stubborn belly fat. I was training hard, I was eating clean, I was doing everything in my power to try and lose the gut, but no matter what I did, I still wasn't seeing the progress that I was always after. So what I need you to do here is pay very close attention, because I'm going to break down exactly what you are missing and the core fundamentals that you need to be executing on in order to lose your annoying stubborn belly fat. So let's dive right into it. So this is the fat loss pyramid, okay? It's made up of a few core fundamentals here that are gonna allow you, once you get all of these under control, to eventually be in that consistent caloric deficit. So as I said before, I was doing everything in my power, right? I was getting my steps in. I was getting my protein in. At least I thought I was getting enough in. I was training 5 days a week. I was doing everything I could, but I still couldn't shift the gut. So if we look at the fat loss pyramid here, you can see that these are just a few fundamentals. These are a few pillars that you need to get under control to be in this caloric deficit. But none of this will be optimized unless you get this one key pillar under control. You have to dial in your sleep and your recovery. So what I want you to do is look at this pyramid here. And we're gonna look at these as if they're floodgates, all right? So let's start off with the sleep and why this is actually here. When I was trying to get in shape, I look back at it, I was undersleeping. I was constantly tired, I was constantly fatigued, I was overtraining, but under recovering. And the reason why this is so important, and it takes up 35 to 40% of this pyramid, is because in order to optimize these, we have to make sure that our sleep is dialed in. If you think about it like this, would you ever try and drive a car with no petrol? No, because what's gonna happen? You're gonna run out of gas and you're gonna eventually crash. Would you try and do anything without the power, without the battery, without the fuel to get you to where you want to be? It's the exact same for our body. In order for us to perform well, to look good, recover well, reduce stress, reduce cortisol, we have to make sure that this is under control. As I said here, sleep, the biggest pillar that we need to dial down here, because without this, none of this will work to eventually burst through and put us in that caloric deficit. So sleep, why is this very important? It's very simple. If you're under recovered, if you're fatigued, if you haven't slept that well, cortisol is going to be through the roof, meaning you're going to be more stressed. And when cortisol is elevated, our testosterone tanks, meaning we're going to have no energy, no drive whatsoever. Our training is going to be awful. And when you're sleep deprived, when you're stressed, when your cortisol is elevated, we're going to feel incredibly hungry. We're going to get cravings through the roof, meaning we're probably going to snack on the wrong things. Life just isn't going to be great. And this is why it's so important that we treat sleep and recovery properly, because without it, we're not going to be able to perform at the level that we need to be for our bodies to be in that caloric deficit. So the first key pillar that we're going to break down here is your steps/NEAT. Now, what does NEAT stands for? It stands for non-exercise active thermogenesis. So basically any form of movement outside of the gym throughout your day-to-day is going to burn calories. It's just gradual light movement outside of the gym, which you wouldn't even notice. It's second nature. So that could be walking around your house. That could be walking around the office block. That could be walking up and down to cookie dinner in the evening. This all adds up. I promise you, the small little things throughout the day are going to add up. So your step count, of course, very, very important, because in order for us to lose weight, we have to make sure that we're getting those extra calories in, but also our activity throughout the day is going to be vital in order to get us to that calorie deficit. Now, one of the biggest reasons why steps and your NEAT is so important isn't for the reason that you may think it is. I always like to look at it from a psychological perspective. If you're getting in a high step count on a daily basis in comparison to you barely getting any steps in at all, what's going to happen? Well, if you're active throughout the day, you're getting a lot of steps in, what's it going to do for your brain? You're rewiring your brain in such a positive way so you have healthier habits throughout the day. If you're getting out first thing in the morning for some sunlight, you're reducing your cortisol levels, you're getting that morning movement in your morning routine, you're going to be dialed in for the rest of the day. You're starting your day with intention. Okay, you're going to acquire so many more positive habits into your life just from getting some daily movement in. It's so underrated. Everybody thinks steps are for the calorie count, but I like to look at it from a psychological perspective. Now, obviously, like I said, the first pillar here is your steps. This is just a small factor in order for you to get to that next level. The second level here is going to be your protein and your macro intake, okay? The reason why I've underlined protein instead of calories is because protein is going to allow us to retain the muscle mass that we actually have, but also keep us fuller for longer. There's 3 things which I've highlighted here. Muscle retention, your hunger, so it's going to reduce your hunger, it's going to keep you satiated throughout the day in comparison to if you had a low protein intake, you're going to be hungry after about half an hour eating a meal. But also your body's metabolism, your body's metabolic rate. When you're eating a high carb and a high protein diet, you're firing up your metabolism to burn more calories throughout the entire day. The biggest mistake that I see so many guys making, and listen, I used to make this mistake too a few years ago, was I always thought the way to try and lose my stubborn belly fat was to starve. I thought, well, hang on a minute, if I just starve myself and I don't eat, and I eat a very low carb diet, I eat a low calorie diet, then of course I'm gonna be in a caloric deficit every day. But that is not how it works. Of course, you can try it for a week or 2, but after a while, if you're slashing your calories, your body starts to lose muscle mass. You're going to have no energy. Cortisol goes through the roof if your carb intake is down, and it's not setting us up for success. So if we're looking at here, we have to make sure that our protein intake is up, making sure that we're eating at least 1 gram protein per pound of body weight to retain the muscle, keep us satiated and full throughout the entire day, but also keep our metabolism fired up. We only burn 5% of our total daily energy expenditure when we're in the gym from exercise. So this is why it's so important that we keep our protein intake high, we keep our caloric intake high, so we can retain the muscle mass, because muscle mass equals more energy burn, more calories burn. The less muscle mass you have, the fewer calories your body will burn at rest throughout the entire day. So it's really, really important here that we make sure our protein intake is high, we're not starving ourselves, we're not cutting carbs, we're eating exactly what we need to be eating to keep our body working for us and not against us, okay? So metabolism, it's such a big factor here. And without these things, again, the metabolism is gonna come right down. So this is why it's so important that all of these are in alignment, because when they are aligned and they're all tied up together, the floodgates are just going to go boom. Now the next pillar that we're going to move on to, which a lot of guys think is the most important, but actually it's just a fraction, is your training, okay? So a lot of guys think that training is the most important part, right? They'll hammer themselves in the gym, they'll train hard, but then they're still not able to build muscle mass, they're still not dropping the body fat. The reason for this is because the transformation comes from what you do in those other 23 hours of the day. Now, as I mentioned, our metabolism is so important, and our training is going to allow us to actually boost our metabolism, because the more muscle mass we have, the faster your metabolism, meaning the more calories your body burns throughout an entire day. So if we look at this chart here, obviously we've got our sleep, we've got our steps, we've got our protein, and these are all going to work together to allow us to perform well in the gym. When these are all under control, when our protein intake is high, when we've got enough carbs on our diet around our training schedule, when we've got our steps in, when we've acquired more positive habits into our life, and when we're well recovered, this is going to be extremely powerful. This is the cherry on the icing, okay? So we've got this here, we've got this here, we've got this here, we've got this here. So the training, how do we want to be training? We need to make sure that we are applying progressive overload in the gym. Now, what that means is progressively getting stronger in the gym over time. So you stick to a specific training block tailored to you, your body type, your availability, your experience, something which is built around something which you enjoy and something which you can stick to. Okay, but you progress with the training program for 6 weeks, applying progressive overload. So you start with a specific weight on a certain lift, and you continuously train on that certain movement until you can do 10 to 12 reps. Then once you've hit that number, you then increase the weight, drop the reps, and repeat the cycle. So we're progressively, continuously getting stronger in the gym. Now, the biggest mistake that I see a lot of guys make is they think in order to grow muscle, you have to continuously change up the exercises, because you have to put the muscles under shock. Of course, that is true, right? But you're not going to be able to progress if you are changing the movements every week. You have to stick to a certain amount of exercises for a minimum of 5 to 6 weeks, get really, really strong with those certain movements, and then you start a new training block, okay? Like I said, this is important, but it's not the foundation. But without any of this, the training will not be where it needs to be. Don't get me wrong, you can get in shape without training in the gym, but this is just gonna be that accelerator. This is just gonna be the enhancement. Now, we've got our sleep dialed in, we've got our steps dialed in, we've got our protein dialed in. We're training 3 to 4 times a week, allowing us to optimize our sleep. Now, what happens here? There is so much pressure, so much power, everything is dialed in to a T that all of a sudden, right, let's use a red pen for this. All right, so we've got our sleep, we've got our steps, we've got our protein, we've got our training, and all of a sudden, the barriers have been broken. And the result of having all of these dialed in is a caloric deficit. But I need to tell you, you cannot be starving yourselves. You have to make sure you're getting enough sleep, because without this, none of this will be dialed in. We're getting our steps in, we're hitting our protein target, and we're training 3 to 4 times a week on a progressive overload plan, okay? The result of all of this is you're gonna be in a caloric deficit of anywhere between 300 to 500 calories a day. In order for us to be in the calorie deficit, we have to fix the base. And once we can do this, we fix the base, the rest will follow. Now, high chances are you're probably in this category right now, okay? The scale won't move, you're tired all the time, you're constantly fatigued, you find yourself binging by 12 p.m. There's no progress in the gym, you're not getting stronger, you're not seeing any physical changes in the mirror, and you find yourself restarting every Monday with that victim mindset, okay? But I want you to know, it's not your genetics, it's not this, it's not that, it's just that you don't have the base dialed in first. Because in order for these to work, in order for your body to work for you, you have to make sure you are well recovered. Now, with just a few tweaks, dialing all of these key pillars here, this is where you're gonna see more progress than you have ever made in your life before. Let me just move this over here. This is when you're gonna start to shred fat on a weekly basis, okay? You'll be dropping anywhere from 1 pound to 2.5 pounds a week. This is what my guys in AWF do. We're in a caloric deficit between 300 to 500 a day, because we're optimizing our sleep, we're optimizing our steps and our movement outside of the gym. We'll make sure that we are hitting our protein target every single day, gram of protein per pound of body weight, but our meals are based around foods that we love, so we don't feel the need to go off track at the weekend. And then of course of that, because we've got these 3 dialed in, that's when our training is optimized. We're able to perform at a very high level, and all of a sudden we're in that caloric deficit every day. Now, the result of this is we're shredding fat every single week, like I said. We've got consistent amounts of high energy. Our hunger is under control because we're eating foods that are high in volume, we enjoy them, and our life isn't a misery. And as well as that, our hunger is under control, but we're sharper at work, we're sharper with our career, we're sharper with our business. Okay, training is enjoyable because again, we've got all of these key pillars in. We've got everything dialed in, so we've got an insane amount of energy. Our recovery is top tier, so we're able to perform our best the following days. And as well as that, we've got very high libido because these are dialed in. We've got a higher sex drive, we've got more energy, our testosterone levels have increased, and we're getting leaner every single day, pretty much every single week, all right? That is the result of what happens when you follow the fat loss pyramid. But I need you to understand that you have to fix the base in order for the rest to follow. Once you've got all of this dialed in, you will be in a consistent caloric deficit. You're training every day, you're hitting your protein target every day, you're getting your steps in, but you're still not seeing the results that you're after. And that is because you do not have a structured program and a system implemented into your life so you can do all of this with just 3 to 4 hours a week. And that is exactly what we focus on within the Prime Performance Protocol at AWF. We build you out a bespoke system that fits into your life, so all of this is doable with just 3 to 4 hours a week. You just need a system implemented into your life which you can follow and execute on. Because you see, the majority of guys don't need more information. They don't need more motivation. They just need a system that is designed and backed by science to get them in that consistent caloric deficit in order for them to get them the dream physique that they want. So if this is you, you're extremely frustrated of not seeing the results that you want, the scale won't move, you're consistently tired, you're binging by 12 p.m, you're not seeing the progress in the gym, but you want to shred fat weekly, you want a consistent amount of high energy, you want your hunger under control, you want to feel sharper at work or with your business, you want your training to be enjoyable, you want a higher sex drive, you want high libido. I actually have a calendar link below where you can book a call with myself. We'll talk about your number one goal, your number one struggle, and we'll give you a game plan to help you achieve your goals. Just know that I want you to win, and I was in the exact same position as you are now. I was putting the work in, but I was extremely frustrated as to why I couldn't see the results. But it all comes down to the fat loss pyramid. Now, if you found this video useful, drop a like, drop a comment, drop a subscribe. You know what to do. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one.